on. Let me get this straight. On Easter, you celebrate and worship a 2,000-year-old zombie who lives in the sky, who you claim loves you, but is also gonna come back and judge us all, and somehow you're excited about this? Yeah. That was a real conversation that I had, and whether it sounds compelling or comical to you, the question behind the question is simple. Really? Resurrection? Dead and then not dead? Unalived and then re-alived? So let's get into it. But first, hi. My name's Corey, and I'm the pastor of RedeemerOnline.Church, and it's my mission to help you understand and practice the Christian faith, especially if you don't go to church right now. And if that's something you're interested in, you haven't done so yet, hit that like button, the subscribe, and the notification bell, because that's going to let you know whenever we put out new videos, and it'll let me know that you're here. So, back to it. Resurrection? Really? Yeah. But listen, I get it, okay? I mean, let's imagine that your favorite podcaster that you've been following, subscribed to, you've been listening, every episode, every bit of teaching, every interview and conversation. Let's imagine he died. Maybe we even went to the funeral. We saw the body. We witnessed the burial. It'd be kind of devastating, especially if we became friends. But if you came to me a couple days later and said, "Hey, Corey, he's alive. I saw him," I wouldn't just have a hard time believing you. I'd be a bit worried about you. I mean, when people die, that's it, right? Everything about the death experience is so final. The closing of the casket, dirt on the coffin, it's rough, but it's real. Everything about the experience communicates we're not going to see that person ever again. So if you came to me and insisted, no, he's alive, I'd have a difficult time believing you. And the earliest accounts of the death and resurrection of Jesus, they all reflect that same difficulty. Nobody was outside the tomb waiting for Jesus to walk out. Mary Magdalene, with some of the others, went there to rewrap and respice the body, fully expecting to find a dead body. They were so convinced that they'd find a dead body that when there was no body, Mary ran and told the other disciples that somebody moved the body. She assumed that somebody took the body. And when two of those disciples, Peter and John, went running to go verify what Mary said, they found an empty tomb with the burial cloth very clearly not wrapped around a body. And John says that when he entered the tomb, he saw and believed. Believed what? That Jesus rose from the dead? No. He believed Mary. Someone must have taken the body. The very next line says that they didn't understand yet that Jesus would rise from the dead. And then Mary, on her way out of the burial grounds, literally runs into Jesus, but doesn't know it's him, because how could it possibly be him? She thinks he's the gardener, and she blames him for moving the body. Here's the point. Those early accounts aren't filled with different, more gullible, stupid people. They're us. I wouldn't have believed it. I'm guessing you wouldn't have either. And neither did they. I mean, ask yourself, what would it take for you to actually believe that it was true that he rose from the dead? For them, it took that. It changed when they saw him. Jesus says Mary's name, and she looks up and realizes it's him. Later, when all the disciples are locked away in a room because they're afraid for their lives, Jesus shows up and they see that it's him. One of the disciples, Thomas, he wasn't there when Jesus showed up. So when the disciples told him about it later, he didn't believe it either, because who would have believed that until he saw Jesus for himself? Nobody believed that Jesus rose from the dead until they saw it with their own eyes. But once they did, here's what it meant to them. First, it validated what Jesus said about himself. Jesus made two unique claims about himself that sort of differentiate him from other spiritual leaders in history. While many claimed to be messengers from God, Jesus claimed a more unique, peculiar relationship. He claimed he was the long-awaited Jewish Messiah, the final king of an everlasting universal kingdom. Now, if you're not familiar, this was one of Jesus' main preaching points, the idea of the kingdom of God, a place where everything is as it ought to be, all wrongs are made right, a kind of utopia into which all people were invited to come and flourish. The second claim he made had to do with his divine status. He claimed to be one with God, as though they were made of the same stuff. He also talked about God as his Father. And he predicted that those claims would be claims that he would eventually be killed for. And so those earliest disciples saw his resurrection as the validation of the claims of what he said about himself. Second, it validated what he said he'd do. Jesus claimed to be a ransom, a payment for the sins of humanity. This makes less sense to us because we don't live in a cultic, sacrifice-based culture. But for the disciples, even the pagans, they grew up believing that in order to appease the gods, regular sacrifices had to be made. Jesus' disciples in particular believed that in order to gain God's forgiveness for their sin, their intentional and unintentional breaking of God's law for life, that they had to make a sacrifice. Jesus claimed to be that sacrifice. So when he died on the cross, it was as payment, atonement for the sins of humanity. Now, if someone slapped a punishment on you for a crime, let's say 10 years in jail for Grand Theft Auto, when would you know that those crimes had been paid for? When you went to jail? No, not when you went into jail. It's when you would have walked out that you know your sentence was served. If the sentence for sin is death, then it's not on entering the grave that the payment is made, but it's when you walk out. So it also validated for those early disciples that Jesus' death was in fact the final offering for sin, as he said. And lastly, it gave them a hope for the future. I mean, all that talk about the kingdom of God, a place where God is king and everything is as it should be, a someday that's better than this day, Jesus' resurrection became the proof for those disciples that that day would truly be possible. If death isn't the end and even life can be resurrected, then why not reality altogether? Why not a someday that'll be better than this day? His resurrection gave them hope that God will somehow, someday make all things new. Which, by the way, is the historical hope of Christianity. It's not that we would all go to some eternal church service in the clouds someday, but that God would resurrect, that he would remake this place, the whole place, for everyone. That's what Christians celebrate on Easter. That's the event that the Christian faith is anchored to. And here's what I love about it. It's a hope that's for everyone, including you. I think it's the kind of thing you can hope is true even long before you believe it. Thanks for watching. Happy Easter, and we'll see you next time.